And so I've really worked really hard on trying to be a practitioner or a teacher, someone who's been in the classroom with students down in Salem trying to work on things that we need to work on. One of the elements of education that we worked on this last 2 sessions was absenteeism. There is a large absenteeism issue and problem in our schools today. And we have a couple of task force, we have a couple of programs that are dealing with some of the issues around absenteeism and trauma that our students are dealing with in their homes and their communities. And that's one element that I want to keep working on as your representative here in House District 29. I will indicate to you that some of the issues that I discovered as I went down as a first-time legislator is that it's extremely important not to go down with any completely, idea about anything. You want to have an open mind. And not only do you want to have an open mind, but you really want to make sure that you want to work with everyone. The committees that I worked on, and I asked for 4, I said if I'm going to retire, I want to be busy and I want to be active. And so I was on the Ag and Natural Resource Committee. I was also on the Consumer Protection Committee. I was on the K-12 Education Committee, and I also am on the Transportation Committee. I was appointed by the Speaker of the House this summer to be on a joint transportation committee where there are 7 legislators from the House and 7 from the Senate to work on the transportation portfolio investment program that we hope to get out of the session in 2017. It's very important for all of us, not just our communities and getting around and recreation, but also because business needs to be able to get their products to the airport, to barges, to the trains, and to many other places where they want to sell their goods. And so those are some of the elements that I've been working on as I've been there for my first 2 years in the House of Representatives. I want to point out that you have some questions that it looks like you're going to ask, but there were 2 elements from the last presentation here with Representative Greenlick and Mr. Burdick, that one of them was minimum wage. And I also was very proud to vote for the minimum wage. I agree that we may need to have some kind of a training wage for young people, but that training wage has to be something that's not abused. And it has to be something that makes sense for a limited amount of time. And those are the type of amendments that could be made for a minimum wage. Somebody else also came up here and asked about, can we not just keep that wage going? Maybe it should be indexed. Maybe there's some elements of that that are important for the future if we're going to keep it going at a reasonable base, a foundation rate for those who are working. And I would indicate again that I agree with Representative Greenlick on the idea that people who are working and working 1 or 2 or 3 jobs should not still be living in poverty. So those are, I do really believe that the minimum wage is a good conversation piece. Any legislation that is passed doesn't mean that it can't be changed, or it can't be improved, or it can't be worked on. And so I think it's important for us to realize that one of the reasons you have a legislature that sits every year at this time is because there are emergencies, and there also are times where passing legislature means you have to go back and look at it again. Another area of concern that I think we have to keep working on is affordable housing. And I just had a town hall in Cornelius on affordable housing. And affordable housing is affordable housing to whom? And we need affordable housing along the spectrum. We need affordable housing that anyone who has a job and has a desire to be a homeowner has an opportunity to find a place to live. And it's going to be something that I know we have to discuss because there are a lot of issues around affordable housing that has to do with the price of housing, has to do with the price of land, has to do with regulations, and has to do with the many types of things that business really needs to look at if they're going to have more opportunity for a wider variety of housing. I don't know who's keeping time, but I think I'm at 4.5 minutes. And I would like to just simply finish by saying it has been an honor to be your representative for the last 2 years, and it has been a lot of work that I enjoy. Policy work is important work so that we can truly try to make sure that as we hand our communities to our children and our grandchildren, they have a good foundation to a healthy environment, they have a good foundation to healthy and very successful schools, and that there are many jobs for them to go forward and take so that they can stay in this beautiful state of Oregon. So thank you very much.
Thank you both very very much, and it's time for questions. I see we already have someone at the mic. Just a reminder, questions should be about a minute, and answers should be held to about 2 minutes if at all possible. And of course, only paid up forum, everything, you know all that. Okay, please.
Terry Levine, forum member. Susan, I'm interested in what the legislature can do about absenteeism. My thought is that there's some experience in Forest Grove 2 years ago. I think Forest Grove does an excellent job of pursuing absenteeism. But what in the world can the legislature do on this subject?
Would you be kind enough to repeat the question?
Yes,
the mic
I will.
seems to.
Thank you. The question that was asked to me was, what can the state legislature do on the problem of absenteeism in our schools? I am right now the president of a task force on class size. There's 113 factors that affect how a teacher can do a good job and how many different types of students can be engaged in a classroom and how they can learn. And one of those elements has to be class size. It has to be engagement. It has to be the feedback loop. And there are many items in an absentee report that you can find on OLIS on the government site that indicated that one of the problems with absenteeism is that we have such large classes. We have so many students in one classroom with one student and 42 students and one teacher. And I experienced 38 to 42 students in my classroom in the last 5 to 7 years that I was in the classroom. And so what we can do as a state legislature is look at the factors around absenteeism and really try to help the schools realize where they can make differences in engaging their students and helping those teachers be able to take care of the load of students that they have. Sometimes there are teachers that may have as low as 175 students a day. But right now, the average is closer to 125 students a day. And as a teacher that taught English and speech and debate, you try to grade the papers for 42 students in one class, and you try to give a good amount of feedback, and you have a one-on-one conversation with each of those students. And so many students find it so sort of overbearing or overwhelming to be in a classroom of that size, whether it be elementary or high school, that they choose not to come to class. And so it's Forest Grove that you mentioned. I want to say one other item. Both Forest Grove and Glencoe High School, where I taught last, we have after-school labs. And we have assistance with trying to get tutors. We have a tutor lab. And you can be tutored in math one-on-one. Or you can come in and after school and have teachers there to help individuals or groups of small students working on math or English or social studies or whatever they need for their homework. And that goes just so far. You have to be engaged and you have to have an opportunity to really have your teacher there in presence with you.
I've spent a lot of time over the last 4 months when I decided to be a candidate interviewing parents and teachers and school board members to find out where the problem is in the schools, because I've never had children in the Oregon school system. And I've heard some war stories that just make me shudder about what's happening in the schools, and particularly about absenteeism. And one of the things I'm hearing is that there are so many teachers that really don't want to be there, that they're just doing there and living out their retirement because of the retirement plans that we have, that students don't show up to school because they sense that, and they sit there and listen to the teachers tell stories about their home life and their personal life and not teaching. So one of the things we need to do is we need to look at some way of measuring the teachers and working with the teachers. If they don't want to be there, they shouldn't be there. And that's not allowed in the union-based system that we have today. The second thing is, I think a lot of absenteeism has to do with interest. If the students aren't interested, especially at the high school level, which is where absenteeism is the worst, if they're not interested in being there, they're not going to go. And we've taken away a lot of the programs that keep students interested. We've taken away Home Ec Shop, FFA, stuff like that. And so we need to look at putting those programs back in. We also need to work with the businesses so that the businesses can get back to partnering with the schools and say, hey, this is what I need. This is the kind of education that I need to hire people out of school. and see if they can't partner, and then if the kids are interested in that, they'll stay in the school so that they have jobs when they get out.
So Karen Bolin, forum member, I just wanted to remind you both about the request to comment on Measure 97, for, against, and why. And I just would like to say, under Measure 97 as a business owner, when you tax 2.5% of the gross, what makes you think that those businesses that you're trying to get that money from aren't just gonna raise their prices by 2.7%? So I guess I don't understand why we don't think that consumers are gonna be hurt by this bill. So Measure 97, for, against, and why?
I'm absolutely against Measure 97, clearly. And there are businesses that don't net a profit of 2.5%, so immediately they're gonna have to readjust something, and the first thing would be readjust prices. And the second thing is, there are businesses that are gonna leave Oregon, or are gonna stop doing business with Oregon, and I'm not just crying wolf on that. Oregon has to compete with other states for everything. And we compete to bring in good businesses into this state. And those businesses are gonna say, why would I come to Oregon if I'm gonna pay 2.5% tax when I can go to New York and get a 20-year reprieve on taxes, period. So putting together a 2.5% gross receipt tax does not make any sense. The second thing is, there is no commitment for where that tax money goes. It's not necessarily gonna go to the schools. It could go to just about any social service program you want it to go to. That doesn't make any sense either. And thirdly, we can't deal with a sales tax at this stage in our economy. A sales tax will really hurt the low-income people and the small businesses in this state. So Measure 97 does not make sense.
First of all, I would like to indicate that I am in favor of Measure 97. And I think it's real important for both the questioner and for my opponent to remember who that is actually being asked to pay the tax of 2.5. You do not pay 2.5% of the tax unless you have a 25 million gross receipt. And that out of 400,000 businesses in the state of Oregon is about 1,000 businesses. 1,000 out of 400,000. And so it's really important to remember who you're asking to pay 2.5%. Secondly, when you start comparing states, you do not just compare property tax or income tax or a corporate tax. You have to take an accumulative tax picture of what the business has to compete with, other businesses with, has to pay taxes in that state. So right now, out of 50 states, when you put all of those taxes together that any business has to pay in the United States, we are 49th lowest. We are one from the bottom on how many taxes a business has to pay in the United States. So please remember that when people start talking about 2.5%. Who pays 1,000 of folks who are above 25 million gross receipts? I want to say one other item, and that is this. We all have to pay our fair share. We all have to pay our fair share. If you look at how much the corporations are paying compared with individuals, you will find that the individuals are paying more in the percentage and per capita. I would also like to point out that, as I have 20 seconds, that this is a measure. This was put on by voters. We are the state of Oregon. And if it passes as a seated legislator, if there are rough edges or things that don't work, come and tell us about it so we can amend it.
Yeah, Tim Hutchinson, former member. This is a follow-on on this Measure 97. I'd like to ask, I'm sorry, what's your name? Juanita. What's been happening up to this point, and what has brought this measure into focus, is that these 1,000 corporations have been paying little or no tax in the state of Oregon, even though they sell $25 million plus in sales. We all know that it's ridiculous that these people are going to withdraw from Oregon because they wouldn't be here unless they were making a profit. So the question is, really, if you don't want to get them to pay taxes in this way, how do you suggest we get these corporations, these 1,000 corporations, who basically are paying nothing? And by the way, I want to correct her. We aren't 49th, we are 50th. We are 50th in the United States of corporations who we're paying no tax. So the question I have of you, since you're against this measure, how do you propose to get these people, these corporations, to pay their fair share? Thanks.
Well, if you look at the statute that this measure changes today, those corporations are paying taxes. Because if you look at the amount of revenue that each of the corporations pay today, there's 45 words in that statute that are being replaced with 5 words. So what it says right now in the statute is if you make more than 25 million, you pay this amount of tax. If you make more than 30 million, you pay this amount of tax. If you make more than 40. So there is a statute right now that dictates how much tax each corporation makes over a certain amount of money. What the measure does is it takes all of that and compresses it and says, if you make more than 25 million, you pay 2.5% of your gross receipts. So it takes all of those words and summarizes it into those 5 words. So it's not true that they're not paying any tax today. They are paying tax. Now, if you question whether it's enough or not, I mean, I can't tell you that today. I will tell you that when I look at the budget in the Oregon budget, which I have done in the last 4 months, there is money in that budget to do what we need to do. It's just not allocated appropriately.
Go ahead, make a fast one, just a fast one, because the question was addressed solely to you.
Right, thank you very much. I do want to clear up 2 things. Number one, on 97, I think it's really important that you know that in the measure itself, read it on the ballot. It says that we have to use that funds for education, for health care issues, and for senior services. And I also have been looking at the budget for longer than 2 years, and there are places where we can always find efficiencies. But there is a $1.5 billion gap that is coming because of services, 188,000 children not covered with health care. Schools that do not have enough staff to be able to bring down those class sizes that are too large. So please, let's remember there's a need, and I hope that you will read the whole measure yourself before you vote for it on the ballot.
Ladies, thank you very, very much. Appreciate you. Appreciate the questions again. Thank you. So folks, we know that this is an election season, and you're probably just dying to find out who's going to join us next week. And if you haven't looked at the website, I will tell you. We have District 24 candidates, all of them. We also have the 2 candidates, I believe it's just 2, I don't have the list in front of me, for Hillsborough Mayor. If there's a 3rd, then that person has been invited as well. And Mark Callahan, a Republican candidate for Senate, will also be joining us. Ron Wyden was invited, but he is unavailable. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings our first session of our 61st year. Say that real fast. Anyway, brings our toy boat to a closure. We'll see you next week at noon. Thank you so much, folks.
It's not very fun, is it? Yep. Alcohol. I know, I was gonna have a drink before I got here, but I didn't think that would be appropriate either. Thank you, Joseph, for your work today. Well, only for your sheet.
Our businesses in Hillsborough to maintain our economic strength, that this is defeated.
Gross receipts. Gross receipts.
Gross receipts.
Yeah.
That this is defeated. Yes, sorry. My mistake.
Huge distinction.
John Williams, board member. So I'm kind of interested in how you approach the management portion of your city. You have a person who is a manager who directs, and then so he relates with the city council. So how do you involve yourself, since the city council and the manager are making a lot of decisions, and so how do you work with them so that it gives you more autonomy?
Thank you, John. Our city manager for Hillsborough has taken the time to join us here today. So he is the one employee that the city council does hire for the community. And it is important to have a strong relationship with the city manager, as well as your department heads and people that work for our city. And I still meet with the city manager every, 6 weeks. To keep updated on what's happening in the community. Since I left council 1.5 years ago, we have term limits. I think that was another issue about how come the mayor isn't currently running. So we have 2 4-year term limits in Hillsborough, and I've been very lucky to stay engaged since I left council. And I think having a working relationship and letting staff do their job, they are the ones that have the extra education in public works and finance and those good degrees and experience that we need to handle their positions. So I feel like I have a strong relationship and am looking forward to working with them even further.
Because Hillsborough has a weak mayor system, and so which means that we have a city manager, professional city manager, who runs the city on a day-to-day basis, it does mean that the mayor works so much more with our regional government and as a representative, as an elected official. And that's one of the things that is very important to remember, that our impact isn't just within the city limits of Hillsborough, but as the economic engine for the county, as well as the home of the largest private employer in our state. What we do and how we represent our city is critically important, and who we engage with and interact with. Now, one of the important responsibilities the mayor has is just to make sure that as you work with the council, that everybody understands the issues, and even if you disagree, that you can agree to disagree. And we had that situation with two-way street conversions, one-way to two-way downtown. And we ended up with a split vote, a split council, 3-3. And yet, we were still able, after the meetings, to go out and socialize with each other, and it was never a personal thing. And so that's one of the strengths that our current mayor has, certainly one of my strengths as well. And so one of the reasons that I retired as a principal this last year was to make sure that I was full-time available to go to our regional meetings, to work with others, and to support staff, and to work with staff as they carry out council priorities and our 2035 vision plan, as well as the things that we as a community say we want, that we as a council say are important to us, and the things that we plan on accomplishing. Thank you.
Can you point out who the city manager is?
Oh, Michael Brown, would you please wave your hand in the back? And Michael will be available as a speaker next week. Here we go.
Board member,
Years ago, Eldon Mills would leave the city manager's office and wander down the street to Doug Johnson's soda fountain at the pharmacy and meet with some civic leaders about 9:30 in the morning, about 5 days a week. And a lot of the decisions got made there. And times have changed, but how does it work in Hillsborough today?
Well, I think,
Too, I'm sorry.
and that's what I'm gonna answer that with, is how do we communicate with our constituents? And so I will tell you that the Hillsborough Pharmacy is still there. There are a group of people who gather every day at 10 o'clock still for coffee. And my daughter, her first job was there at the soda fountain there in Hillsborough Pharmacy. Now we have many other ways of reaching out, to people. And, obviously we are present on social media and that sort of thing. But the key thing goes back to relationships and making sure that you are available, that you are responsive to constituent concerns, and that you are addressing the issues that they have. Because anytime that we are making decisions without public input, then we run the risk of making narrow decisions that are misunderstood or misinterpreted. So making sure that we are out visible, making sure that we are out engaging, and that's something that I have done as a counselor, something I will continue to do as a mayor, and that's what we do to make sure that we have those relationships and get good feedback. One of the other things is making sure, and this is something I'll do as mayor, is that those who have comments to make during the city council meetings have the opportunity to make those comments so that they can be considered and part of the council's deliberations. Thank you.
I had to laugh when you mentioned the soda fountain, because I used to go the morning after we'd have contentious council meetings and lots of community discussion. I would go and show up there for the breakfast, and I would sit in the middle of where they would all be. And just so that when they walked in the room, it would be, well, where's my chair? That's always my chair. And then get engaged in the conversation to find out how maybe we could have handled something different or what they would want to see. So that was a fun time for me as well. So I enjoy that. I enjoy the Hillsborough Pharmacy and the sense of community that it brings together. So I've been out and engaged in this community for a long time, and we do, I think, have a problem with getting, we have the information out there available through the internet, through the mail with our city views that comes out every month. It's wonderful information, but trying to get people to read it is a problem. So providing opportunity to speak with us at Saturday markets or Tuesday marketplace and getting that engagement with people on their own time, I think is going to be beneficial as well, and I will work on that as mayor.
So this question is for both candidates. My name is Karen Boland. I'm president of the Aloha Business Association, and so my simple question is Aloha. What are your thoughts? Since the 1980s, it's kind of been eaten away by the school district boundary and different decisions that have been made along the way. What would be your vision for Aloha? Staying Aloha, coming into Hillsborough, what are your thoughts? We've got transportation issues and school issues, and I know that's a long question, but just what are your thoughts on Aloha?
Aloha. Aloha. Our first home that we purchased was in Aloha by the post office. So I was an Aloha community member for 4 years, and 185th changed significantly in the time that we were there. It does present a split in the community, and now I live in the Reedville area, which is often considered part of Aloha. So that is my home, that region, and where I shop, and up and down the corridor of Hillsborough and Aloha. I've been hearing a lot at house parties that I've had in the area with Aloha residents coming that they want to be a part of Hillsborough for the sidewalks and for the park system, and that's been a very popular thing that I've heard. I would want to examine the Aloha Reedville study more to see, and also do some outreach to the community from the Hillsborough side. The Senate bill, I think, was 122 way back in the day, that divided up for police and fire as well as the school district boundaries, determined that the school district boundaries would be the city boundary. It'll be a very expensive proposition for the city to go through with annexation to areas, but I think that there's a community rumbling of support for that, just to get more support for those residents.
Well, my focus is Hillsborough Mayor, honestly, is Hillsborough. But obviously, ALOA is a good partner, for us. Hillsborough does not believe in aggressive annexation. We are passive annexation. And so, as mayor, I would, if we wanted to do any sort of annexation, obviously we would be working with Washington County, because that is all in unincorporated Washington County, and we would need to make sure that it's going to serve the needs of both the city of Hillsborough as well as the needs of the ALOA community as well. We are already partners with parts of ALOA, through Washington County Cooperative Library System, for instance. And so we communicate, we work well, but it would need to be part of a much larger picture of making sure that it meets all of our long-term interests, long-term goals, and our long-term vision. Thank you.
Karen.
Oh, I'm done? Okay.
Sorry, but I really hate doing that to Karen or to anybody, but it kind of points out that just at election time, we are just that busy. So please join me as I thank our two candidates for Hillsborough Mayor, Steve and Karen. Best of luck on that. We are real busy and we're trying to fit so much in. So about 4 days ago, I got an email asking for just 2-3 minutes at the mic for a very, very important issue. I said yes, and we arranged that he would start off speaking, and I forgot all about it. So our last speaker will wait just a second while I slap myself across the face and give myself a wake-up call. Sig, would you come up, please?
Mr. Chairman, I promised I would be brief. Come to Quake Up, October 1st, less than 2 weeks, to learn about earthquake preparation. Thank you.
That's less than 2 minutes.
That's less than 2 minutes. We have a great team. We're going to put on a new Quake Up this year. Instead of being at Hillsborough as it was last year, we're going to be at the Beaverton Farmers Market. We will have top expert speakers on the Cascade Subduction Zone earthquake. You will also have an opportunity to learn what you can do to be prepared, get your kids prepared, have a plan to a path to safety in your home, get your business prepared, and learn about this very real threat of the Cascade Subduction earthquake, which we believe could happen any time, but we don't know when, but it's very important that we prepare the county, the community, and our cities, and ourselves for this event to come. So if you have any questions, I've got posters in back. Come and ask me questions. We'll have some to take home, and hopefully we'll come back in the future and give you a full 1-hour presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Less than 3 minutes.
All we need is notice, and we'll have more time. Ladies and gentlemen, the forum is in a unique position in Washington County. There are other organizations that present similar programs, and they tend to take positions on, well, I won't say they take positions on different issues. We are so good at being neutral, nobody knows what we think. As I transition into our next guest, next speaker, we had hoped, the U.S. Senate election is very important, and we had invited the two major candidates, of course, and unfortunately, the sitting member, Ron Wyden, was unavailable. But that will not stop us from providing an opportunity for his challenger. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Callahan, candidate for U.S. Senate.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Callahan. I am running for the U.S. Senate against a 35-year career politician New Yorker that we call Ron Wyden. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe in freedom. But I would like to start out today by asking if there was any veterans in the room. Are there any veterans here today? Well, I do thank you for your service. Thank you very much. Both my parents were in the Navy. My dad was a machinist mate in the 70s. My mom was a data systems technician. She went back into the Navy in the 90s as a mess cook, served on board the USS Guam down during Mardi Gras. And that was a great experience for her. I believe in freedom. I believe in our country. I believe in Oregon. Oregon is my home. I grew up in Eugene. I now live in East Portland right now. I've been traveling all around this state. Yesterday, I tell you, this last weekend, I put about 1,000 miles on my car. I went over to the Pendleton Roundup, actually rode a horse. The horse broke the bridle, kind of injured my finger here. But I rode a horse over the Pendleton Roundup. I went up to Warrenton, did an event up there, went down all the way down the coast to Coos Bay, did an event down there in the same day. And then I also went back over to LeGrand yesterday. I've been traveling this state, and this is a great state. Been talking to a lot of folks. I've been doing a lot of county fairs as well. Been eating a lot of county fair food, which I kind of have to watch here, but it's been some great county fair food. I was over talking to a gentleman who was also a veteran in Grant County, and he was telling me how he's on disability. And he was telling me that he was called up for a drill weekend, also being, even though he's on disability. And so he had to file a form with the VA, and he was hoping that the VA would have actually processed it, but they didn't. And so now his disability is being garnished because VA did not process his form. That is unacceptable. He's having problems feeding his kid. I was also over at the Walala County Fair. And as I said, I've been doing a lot of county fairs. I did about 5 county fairs in one day. It wore me out over in the northeastern corner of Oregon. I was talking to a lady over there. Normally you have a county fair, you have the animal section, you have the carnival rides, you have the arts and crafts and the vegetables, and those darn carnival games you can never seem to win at, I guess. But I was talking to a lady over there, and Walala County Fair, me pronouncing that wrong, had one building. They had one building, and it was just the arts and crafts and the vegetables. And so having been around to these other county fairs with these, it's a lot more spread out. I asked her, I said, why is there only one building at this county fair? Where are all the animals? Where are all the carnival rides and games? And she said, well, the community over here in Enterprise has been decimated ever since 3 of our mills shut down. I've been hearing story after story after story of this happening all throughout Oregon. This is sad. This is absolutely sad. Josephine County has lost most of their public services in Southern Oregon. This is absolutely sad. My opponent that I'm running against, that I commonly refer to as the New Yorker, has been in there for 35 years. He needs to go. He's been in there since I was 4 years old. I'm 39 years old myself. I'm out there on the trail every night. Had my kids with me this weekend. They pass out the literature for me. Of course, I buy in Dairy Queen Blizzards afterwards. But I know why I'm doing it. I'm doing it for them. When I became a father about 13 years ago, my oldest daughter Heather is 13, my youngest daughter Sarah is 12. When I became a father about 13 years ago, it was the happiest day of my life. I can tell you I was in the operating room that day. My oldest daughter Heather was born. I held her up in my hand, and I realized that life was no longer just about me. I realized that my life from then forward was about this life in my hand. I have to do a lot more than just keep a roof over their head and food in their belly. If I can get out there on the trail with them and I can teach them about freedom, and I can teach them about liberty and how our country was founded, that's what I'm going to do. I believe in a balanced budget amendment. I believe in enforcing our immigration laws. I believe in replacing our current tax system, 74,000-page tax system, full of carve-outs and cronyism, with a simpler, fairer, flat tax. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark Callahan. I believe in freedom because I believe in our country, and I believe we can get our country back, and we need to do this together. Thank you, and may God bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please feel free to line up. Mr. Callahan will be with us for another few minutes. I am not seeing a rush to the, okay, we are getting a rush to the stage.
Is there another speaker, or is this it?
No, this. So there's room for you to squeeze in, Karen.
Thank you. I'm wondering where
Your name,
Oh, my
and
name
are
is,
you a paid-up member of the forum?
I'm not, no.
Okay, then I'm sorry, but I can't have you ask questions. Sorry. I know that sounds rude, but quite frankly, we're a volunteer organization, and if we don't offer a benefit for membership, well, that's the benefit for membership. We get to speak directly if we're members to the speakers. As to that gentleman who had wanted to ask a question on his own without using a surrogate, if he would like to wait, I'm sure that Mr. Callahan would be around, perhaps be able to talk to him one-on-one.
Harry Bodine, floor member. A couple of years ago, looking at the federal budget, I discovered that if we abolish the entire federal government, Department of Defense, state, all the way down National Park Service, everything, we still pay Social Security and Medicare entitlements. The budget for that year would have been $250 billion still in the red. So with the long-term answer, which nobody will ever address, is entitlements. And I'm a beneficiary. I get Social Security, I help by Medicare. But my question to you is, how can we ever get some fiscal sanity in our federal government unless we attack the elephant in the room?
Well, as I said, I am a fiscal conservative myself. I believe in supporting and sponsoring a balanced budget amendment. What you refer to as entitlements, Social Security and Medicare, are something we all pay into and have paid into, and they belong to us. So you are correct that we are entitled to those because we have paid into them. So the way I see it is that I was taught to balance my checkbook when I was younger, in my teens. My mother taught me to balance the checkbook. I figured the federal government needs to learn to live within their means as well and be able to balance their checkbook. Right now we have program upon program upon program sucking up federal money to the tune of nearly $20 trillion. We're paying for things like shrimp on treadmills and robotic squirrels that we should not be paying for. Instead, we should be taking care of our seniors. Instead, we should be taking care of our veterans as priorities in our federal government. So to answer your question most directly, when I get in there, I would support a balanced budget amendment, reduce the size of the IRS, because it's basically collecting money that the federal government is wasting, and focus more money and time and resources on Social Security, on Medicare, and on our veterans.
So I'm curious, Karen Boland, I'm just curious, what is your background? Like, what other government agency have you served in, school board? I mean, it's pretty simplistic to say balance a checkbook, right?
Yep.
You get to the federal government and there's a lot of lines to balance.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Right? So it seems pretty simplistic to expect that to correlate.
Okay.
So I'm looking for, what have you done specifically in government-related type work that prepares you for this job?
Well, I can tell you I'm an outsider. And it is the year of the outsider from what I've seen in our current political environment. I'm an IT guy by trade. So as I said, I grew up in Eugene. I went to Oregon State University though. Graduated from Oregon State University with a business degree with a focus in management information systems. I'm an IT guy by trade, so I work on computers for a living. So I kind of have that analytical mindset. I like solving problems. In that respect, just in general, say we have a problem to solve, and there are different ways of solving that problem, the Democrat way, the Republican way, the independent way, the Green Party way, the Working Family Party's way. So all different types of ways to solve this problem. I think we spend too much time in terms of fighting each other on how to solve the problem, and the problem never gets solved. So to answer your question most directly, I'm an analytical person. I think about things. I like solving problems. I like solving challenges. I actually put together several puzzles on my kitchen table when I was younger. But in terms of my government experience, I am an outsider. I have not been elected to government before.
No school board, no nothing?
I was on a committee, appointed to a committee against a city income tax down in Eugene. That was about 4 or 5 years ago.
That's it?
Yep, that's it, yep.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
Chris Leslie, floor member. This is for Mr. Allen's question. How do you stand on voting for the Supreme Court in the Senate now for Mayor Garland?
Merrick Garland, okay. I would have to do a little bit more research on him, but I can tell you that I'm not too enthused about him as a candidate for the Supreme Court. I've done some research on his background in terms of gun rights, and I'm pro-gun rights myself. I appreciate our Second Amendment. I will defend our Second Amendment when I get in there in the U.S. Senate. And I'm pro-Second Amendment. I believe shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed. And Merrick Garland is not representative of that mindset. So I would be very reluctant and hesitant to confirm him And I most likely would not vote to confirm him because of his stance on gun rights.
This is my question, Chris Leslie. What do you think is the biggest problem today for the government?
The biggest problem today is that government is too big. It's too big. As I stated, we have $20 trillion in national debt. Our government is too big. We have veterans that are dying on the waiting list. Our government is way too big. We need to get our arms around this. We need to start living within our means and setting the example at the government level because it's too big. That's why I'm proposing a flat tax that will replace the current tax system. That'll be a lot simpler. We could do our taxes on a postcard, and that's what I'm proposing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. One more time for applause. Not just for Mr. Callahan, we've had some great speakers today to take a look at some great issues. So one more time, thank you to Ken Moore, Ron Noble, and Aaron Carlson, Steve Galloway, and again, Mark Callahan. So as I bring today's session to a close, let me just tell you to look forward to next week for those of you that aren't getting the newsletter. And if you aren't, go to the website, click that you want to get the newsletter. You don't even have to join. You just click, you'll get the newsletter. You'll get all the information that's fit to print. Oh, somebody else has got that slogan. Anyway, on the 26th, we featured the race for the governor of Oregon. Kate Brown is not able to attend. We will have Dr. Pierce here. We're taking a look at House District 30, and there'll be a representative to discuss the Tualatin Water and Conservation Bond. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week, same time, same station. Thank you very much.